Good afternoon, friends. On behalf of the Government of India, Life Insurance Corporation of India, and all the book runners to this IPO, I take great pleasure in extending a warm welcome to each one of you on the occasion of this truly historic moment for Indian capital markets in India, which is the listing of the Life Insurance Corporation of India. On a lighter note, before I introduce the dignitaries on the dais, all of us in this country are used to corporates and individuals standing in front of the senior management of Life Insurance Corporation requesting for their support for their issuances. Today, I think we're witnessing something different, which is LIC is here to make a presentation to the media and the investors on the occasion of its IPO. Before I move forward, let me take the opportunity to introduce the dignitaries on the dais. On the center, third to my left, is Mr. Tuhin Kanta Pandey, Secretary, Department of Investments and Public Asset Management, DIPAM, who has traveled all the way from Delhi to be here on this momentous occasion. To his left is Dr. Alok Pandey, Joint Secretary, Department of Investments and Public Asset Management. To Mr. M.R. Kumar is to Mr. Tuhin Kant Pandey's right. He needs no introduction. He is the chairperson of LIC. And to the extreme right is Mr. Amit Agarwal, Additional Secretary, Department of Financial Services Government, which is DFS. I just want to make a few points about LIC before requesting the Government of India, Mr. Tuhin Kant Pandey, as well as the chairperson of LIC to address you all. Whenever we think of LIC, I don't think we can think of a greater brand than LIC. So it is the fifth largest life insurer globally, amongst the top 10 global by total assets on the basis of fiscal 21. It has a 66% share in terms of new business premium, the second most valued brand in India, and amongst the top 10 in terms of global valuable brands in the insurance sector. It has the largest individual agency network, more than 7 or 7.5 times its closest competitor. And this is the largest IPO in Indian capital markets history. Just to give you a 1-second capsule on the highlights of the issue, the IPO will open on the 4th of May, which is Wednesday, closes on the 9th of May, Monday, with the anchor quota opening on 2nd Monday. The price band, which has already been circulated, is rupees 902 to rupees 949. The bid lot is 15 shares. The issue size is rupees 20,557 crores, amounting to a 3.5% dilution. 10% of the offer size has been reserved for policy holders and 0.7% for employees. The discount is rupees 60 for the policy holders and rupees 45 for the employees and retail investors. With this very brief background and not wanting to stand in the middle of you hearing the Secretary DIPAM and later the Chairperson LIC, I will request the Secretary DIPAM to address you all, which will be followed by an address by the Chairperson LIC, followed by an AV and a short presentation before we get on to Q&A. Thank you very much. I'll just request the media, who have always been friends of good issuances, to widely publicize the issue and give this opportunity to every investor in the country and ensure that they don't miss a serious evaluation and investment in this IPO. Thank you very much. I'll request the Secretary to address you all. Wherever, you can decide.
Chairman LIC, Mr. Amit Agarwal, representing Department of Financial Services, his Additional Secretary, my colleague Alok Pandey from DIPAM, and Mr. Srinivasan, Mr. Ramesh, and friends. I think we have been waiting for this day for a long time. government had a strong commitment to list LIC, and it was reflected in Honorable Finance Minister's budget speech, and subsequently the Parliament also passed the Act, LIC Amendment Act, to enable LIC IPO. LIC is a strong corporation of people of India. Listing of LIC is a part of long-term strategic vision of the government and will be high value enhancing for LIC in the long run. The current IPO is the first step of long-term value creation for LIC shareholders. Government is committed to provide good investment and wealth enhancing opportunity to millions of Indians. This is right-sized considering the capital market environment and will not crowd out capital and monetary supply given the current environmental constraints. We expect significant retail participation in line with our vision when we first started discussing the IPO. This is an opportunity for the Indian consumer to participate in the wealth creation of one of India's most valuable corporation. The valuation reflects this opportunity, and the optimal size should provide for a strong demand and aftermarket performance. Even after the reduced size of about 21,000 crore, the LIC IPO is going to be the biggest initial public offering ever in the country. Ultimately, the market and investors will price this deal. Valuation flows from the optimizing positioning, devising the best marketing strategy, accessing the investors in the right way and with the right sequencing, structuring the deal appropriately, and selecting the optimal market window. We have never lacked ambition in meeting our strategic goals. We want to build a quality retail inclusive shareholders register to support a strong future for LIC and a de-risked monetization strategy for the shareholder. We also recognize an IPO is just the beginning. We like to get behind and create a great future path for LIC. We want to champion LIC as a long-term value creator in the equity markets. The current dilution is very small in the overall journey of this great corporation. The decision to list now has taken into account the combination of multiple factors, including market demand, which includes solid anchor book, stabilizing market condition, reducing volatility, domestic flows, and corporations' financial performance. Indian equity capital markets are undoubtedly benefiting from strong structural tailwind given concerns in other markets. Indian markets have recovered from the temporary shock due to global geopolitical events earlier, and volatility has reduced meaningfully from its earlier peak. While global sentiments are weak, Indian markets are resilient on the back of consistently strong domestic flows. This sentiment is evidenced by the Indian equity markets continuing to be strong and the only market in Asia with the fuel to deliver a large IPO. India continues to be the fastest growing major economy in the region, in fact in the world, with a favorable investment climate and stable government. Life insurance is highly underpenetrated segment with a long growth runway in India, and LIC is an undisputed market leader with 60% market share, stands to benefit the most. We have tackled COVID in an exemplary way. Direct and indirect tax collections have been robust coming out of this pandemic, likely a reflection of the ongoing formalization of the Indian economy and the economic growth rebound. Ladies and gentlemen, LIC IPO is a great opportunity. It was considered something unthinkable because this has been a financial institution for a long, long time and continued to remain unlisted for such a long time. And LIC was always an investor. And now today LIC is coming before the investors to get invested in. So it's a great Indian story, and I welcome you all to, reach it out to everyone about this thing. And government really hopes that LIC management and investors and others would be able to pull it through greatly, this IPO. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Secretary Deepam, Mr. Tuin Kant Pandey. Additional Secretary DFS, Mr. Amit Agarwal. Joint Secretary Deepam, Mr. Alok Pandey. Mr. Somesh and Mr. Ramesh. My colleagues from LIC. Media persons and press persons available and present here. I thank Mr. Tuin Kant Pandey ji for his opening remarks. He has covered a lot of ground. We did have media interaction in the morning with the TV media people. I am sure you have a lot of questions to ask. But just to take a leaf out of what Mr. Tuin Kant Pandey said, that LIC having been resilient over the years and having held on to market share comes from the fact that the reason for nationalization of the insurance companies in India in 1956, I go back to that, I just take a brief moment. So I believe that nationalization happened in 1956. LIC probably struggled in the first few decades of actually trying to sell insurance in India. It was very difficult to sell. Managed to gather momentum in the 70s and the 80s. And then it was the only insurance company selling insurance for the Indian public. I call this phase internally, I've said it in the past as well, I call this phase LIC 1.0. And then the opening of the market happened. And contrary to what people thought, LIC adapted to the competition. It grew its technology. It made strides in competitive market and held on to more than normal market share not seen elsewhere in the globe. So I call this phase LIC 2.0. And now that the time has come for LIC to be listed, I believe all LICians will work together to make this a huge success. And from now on, we will call it LIC 3.0. So I thank all of you for being here today, and hopefully together we can make a real impact. Thank you very much.
Very good afternoon to all of you. Honorable Dais, members of the audience, it's my privilege to make a small presentation about LIC. Though LIC needs no introduction, I would just like to briefly give you an idea as to what has happened in the corporation in the last few years and maybe what is actually happening now. This presentation covers basically 6 areas. These are the 6 areas that I will be covering: the overview, The customer franchise, the business highlights, actuarial matrices will be covered by my friend, and strategic priorities and outlook with a value proposition. LIC has been the pride of India. We are the second largest life insurers in India, and brand LIC is the third strongest global insurance brand, with a 279 million policies being serviced and having about 1.33 million agents on its roll. We are the strongest, we have the strongest distribution network in India and operating efficiencies which are driven by technology and an established track record of profitable growth. The first life insurer in India, fifth largest by the world, in the world and by life insurance gross written premium. We are the 10th largest global life insurer in total assets, with a 64% market share as of 31st March 2021, which is almost 8 times the nearest competitor. If you look at the scales, we are 21 million individual policies sold against the 12.7, this is 12.7 times the nearest second largest life insurer. INR 1843 billion first year new business premium underwritten, which is 66% of the market share. Customers and distribution, if I look at 1.33 million agents again, and that is 55% of the total agents of the entire Indian industry. And their productivity levels are also much higher at 15.3 in comparison to 3.9 policies per private insurer. The premiums underwritten, total premiums and the embedded value, if I look at, we have INR 5,397 billion embedded value, which is the second largest, which is in comparison to the second largest life insurer, 15.3 times larger. INR 40,122 billion assets under management, which is again more than 1.1 times the entire Indian mutual fund industry, and 77% is a 13-month persistency ratio, and 62% is a 61st month persistency ratio, which actually points to the stickiness of our customers. 98.6% of the individual death claim settlement have happened in the last financial year, and this has been a record of performance which the corporation presents. This has been an illustrious journey of 65 years. We started in 1956 by merging 245 companies. Today, we are the market leaders by a large difference, 66% market share in NBP in the year 2021. And even after 20 years of liberalization with a 66% market share, we still continue to be the force to reckon with in the Indian industry. The renewal book is very strong with 63% market share, and we have almost covered 100% of the entire country, with 91% of the country being covered by our brick and mortar offices. We have a differentiated business model with deep, very competitive moats, unmatched scale with fifth largest global life insurer, and a brand which is trusted like no other in India. We have a cross-cyclical and comprehensive product solutions and an unrivaled distribution network, as I already said. With a dedicated focus on technology, we have been the pioneers in bringing technology to India. In the 1960s, we were the beginners of mainframe computers in India. Strong investment and financial track record. We are probably the largest institutional investor in India, and of course, very strong risk control measures, which is the basis or the foot on which we stand very strongly. Moving on to customer franchise and distribution reach, we have an unmatched scale and consistent record of growth. As I already stated, we have 1,843 billion new business premium, which is almost 9 times the nearest competitor, and of course the growth has been consistent in the business cycles across. Even in the COVID times, we have been consistently able to show growth rate even in the new business premiums. We are a trusted brand, second most valuable brand in India, and with the name that we have curved in the last 65 years of our existence, We are the 10th most valuable insurance brand globally in the year 2021 with a brand strength index score of 84.1 and a brand value of 8,655 million US dollars. In fact, the strength of the brand is such that 75% of the individual policies sold by LIC in India has been sold to new to LIC customers, which means that customers buying insurance still prefer LIC over other competitors. We have a product portfolio which comprises of 16 participating products, 16 non-participating products, 11 group products and 7 riders. But the strength of the corporation has been the strong dominance of par products in our portfolio, which actually creates a balance sheet which is relatively low on interest rates and liquidity risks, which also lessens the burden on guaranteed returns and lowers capital requirements. With a reduced reinsurance requirement, also creates a sticky customer base, which gives us an opportunity for resell and upsell. If you look at the product mix, we have 92.2% of our products coming from par and in the AP segment as well. The strength has been our par, but I would like to also mention here that we have diversified into growth in non-par. If you look at the growth that we have shown in non-par, it's 15.5% CAGR in non-par protection. In non-par savings, we have shown a growth rate of more than 31%. Non-par unit-linked products, we have shown a 369% growth rate in the year 2021 to 2019 to 21 period. And of course, in the annuities and pension, we have shown about 11% growth rate in the last 3 years. And in the annuities and pension segment, we hold almost 77% market share. Group insurance is a volume play for LIC with a market which is expected to grow at a 17.5%. We have almost a 72% market share. And in the annuities market, we have 82.7% of the employed population, 77% of the market share in annuities with a there is a almost 9%, 9 times more than the nearest competitor. As I said already, the digital capabilities that we have, we were the pioneers in introducing computers in India, and today we have built digital capabilities across the entire spectrum of a customer acquisition, right from the stage of onboarding till the stage of claims. In fact, we have arrangements of payment of premium with all the payment platforms online, and this has resulted actually in the lower part of the presentation, if you see, the percentage of policies with renewal premium which is paid in digital mediums has gone from 26% to 47%, and the collections on digital medium have gone from 17% to 36%. We have probably the largest geographical model in India with presence right from the Himalayas to the seas on the south. If you look at, we have 91% of the districts of India covered with our brick and mortar offices, but our agency force gives us a presence which is spread across the entire geography of India, even beyond. And a market leadership in rural areas with 67% of the business written in rural areas being written by the LIC. But the presence of rural doesn't mean that we are weak in the urban area. In fact, only 13% of our premiums are written by rural areas. 87% of the premiums are written by metro, urban and semi-urban areas. And the geographical distribution of agents also, if you look at it, is almost even with 48% of the agents in the rural areas and 52% in the urban areas. Now, the channel network which we have been talking about, the distribution pattern that we have the biggest strength of 133 million agents exclusive to LIC, 70 bancassurance partnerships, 69 corporate agents, 83 brokers, 63 insurance marketing firms, 4,409 premium points, active micro insurance agents of 2,128 and 3,607 branches and satellite offices. But the strength has always been the agents who underwrite almost 96% of our business in the last 2 years. But then I would also like to stress here that even though agency has been our strength, we are also finding a growth trajectory in the bancassurance channel. The total collection of bancassurance in LIC last year has been probably sixth highest in the total collection of bank assurance, total bank assurance business being written by all the companies. The first four of the bank assurance, first four companies being bank partners. So the growth is there in bank assurance channel, and we are poised to grow exponentially in the bank assurance channel in the coming years. Agency network, as I said, we are the strongest. We have 55% market share, that is share of the total number of agents in the market, which is 7.2 times the nearest peer, that is ICICI Prudential, 7.2 times. And I also would like to take pride in saying this, that we have the productivity which is the highest in the country in per agent productivity number of policies at being 15.3 as against 2.2 of the listed average, listed peers average, which is 7 times, and of course 418,000 rupees premium, which is again 2.2 times the productivity of the listed peer average. The average agency has been growing at an average of about 7% CAGR in the last 2 years, and now we also have the largest contingent of professional agents anywhere in the world. The $1 million roundtable criteria is supposed to be the performance benchmark as far as an agent is concerned universally, and we have 19,393 agents who have fulfilled the $1 million criteria as of 31st December 2021. This is the largest contingent, as I said, in the world. And 81% of our agents are recruited from the 18 to 40 years age, that is a millennial age. And the loyalty and the longevity is shown on the right side of the graph. The agency force turnover is a major concern in most of the insurance companies. We have 59% of our agents who have been working with us for more than 5 years, many of them working with us even for as high as 50 to 60 years. And the mix, if you look at, only 9% of our agents are above 60 years. The 18 to 25 and 26 to 40 bracket contributes about 42% of the total agency force of LIC. Now moving on to business highlights and financial performances. LIC is unmatched in scale, whether it is in the new business premium underwritten or the individual policies sold or the strong renewal book, which is as visible here, 9 times the number of 9 times the premium of the nearest competitor and 11 times the number of policies sold by the nearest competitor, and of course the renewal book, which is 7 times more than the nearest competitor. The operating efficiencies we have been continuously focusing upon. We work with the second best operating efficiency in the country at 19%, and the profitability has been best in class at 1.5 times the nearest peer. And the persistency metrics, if you see, we have a 68% persistency at 13 month and a 62% persistency at the 61st month. This is an indication that our customers are sticky. If you look at the comparative persistency of all the listed peers, mean persistency of the listed peers is only 52%, whereas LIC's persistency at 61st month is 62%. Now, if I look at the assets under management, we have 15.6 times the assets under management of the second largest private life insurer at 40 billion INR, the assets under management, which is 1.1 times the assets under management of the entire mutual fund industry in India. And if I compare the assets of LIC of India, assets under management of LIC of India against the GDP of India, the LIC's assets under management is almost equal to 17% of the GDP of India in the financial year 2022. We manage 76.5% of the insurance industry's assets under management, and our assets under management have been diversified with 25% investment in equity, 38% in government securities, and 24% in state government securities. 9.8 trillion investment of equities have been done as of December 21. And 95.9% of this has been invested in sovereign and AAA rated securities. Now, we are, because of managing such high assets, we are subject to very high risks. LIC has been recognized as a domestic systemically important insurer by the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, subjecting LIC to very high levels of corporate governance and risk management culture. In fact, we have several factors which work in our favor. First of this being the large geographically diversified customer base and a par-dominated product portfolio, as I already said, which actually serves as a natural hedge for the risk that we have. If you look at the reinsurance premium ceded, which is indicated in the graph below, LIC cedes only 0.1% of its premium, renewal premium, towards total premium towards reinsurance, and that has been consistent over the last 3-4 years, whereas the industry as such and the private players all put together have been showing a growth in the reinsurance premium ceded. On the other side, we have a very lower ticket size which reduces volatility and a very prudent pricing approach. Also a very prudent asset liability matching strategy and of course a very proactive management of financial risks. I think the next part, this of course is the management team and the board of directors, a very strong corporate governance framework. The management team consists of a board which has got 15 members, one of which is a government nominee, 5 of our chairman and MDs, and the remaining being nominated directors. All of them have excelled in their respective fields of work and have been very distinguished board members. And of course, a key management personnel group consisting of officers who have more than 35 years of experience in the insurance sector amongst themselves. Now, I request my colleague to take over on the actuarial metrics.
Thank you, Mr. Muridhar. I'll be taking you through two important metrics of life insurance industry. One is the embedded value, which in the Indian context is called the Indian embedded value, and the other one is the value of new business. The embedded value for the corporation as at March 21 stands at 956 billion INR, and as at September 21, post segregation of policy fund, which I'll be touching soon, which is around 5,400 billion INR. To understand this quantum jump of the Indian embedded value, we need to step back and understand how the funds are structured in the Life Insurance Corporation. LIC, as you know, was formed by an Act of Parliament in the year 1956. Section 24 of that Act stipulates that at that time that LIC is to have a single fund, and therefore we had a single distribution ratio of 95% of profits to policyholders and 5% to shareholders. In the year 2012, this was amended by the Parliament, which allows the distribution pattern to go from 95.5 to 90% or more. Even though the amendment was made, the government allowed LIC to continue with 95% to policyholders, with an option to revisit it in future. Consequent to 2021 amendment, Financial Amendment Act and the LIC Act, the LIC Section 24 was amended, allowing to maintain two funds for policyholders. One is a participating fund and the non-participating fund. The distribution pattern under the policy participating fund is given in the bottom of this slide, and it takes a glide path from the 5% to shareholders to 10% over a period of 3 years, and the distribution under the non-par continues at 100%. Now, the embedded value before bifurcation takes credit to the extent of the maximum of 10% from the funds, whereas post bifurcation under the non-par business, the credit increases to 100%. So this is the main reason for the increase in the embedded value. Coming to value of new business, the value of new business of the corporation as at half year 22 stands at 15.83 billion INR, and this has to be looked at considering the fact that quite a sizable chunk of new business comes in the last quarter. If you look at the right side of the slide, by VNB margin of the corporation for the various lines of business, we find that the individual non-participating book, the margins are quite strong. And given the fact that there is a focus of corporation towards the non-par products, the overall margin, which stands at 9.9% for the year 21, and for half year it is 9.3, this is expected to go up north. Coming to strategic priorities and outlook, it was already addressed elsewhere that in the slide that India, the largest LIC is the insurance market is the largest. LIC is has the largest share of market in India, and we have a significant premium growth opportunity to close the protection gap. There is a significant rise in the household savings with increasing preference for the insurance products. There are potentials for growth that capitalize on the life insurance sector growth opportunity, diversifying product mix by increasing focus on non-par portfolio, and reinforce and diversify into the various channels, including the banca and other digital channels, and therefore enhancing productivity and continuing leverage on the technology, whereby we will be able to use the analytics and other IT support to improve on the and drive the customer efficiency. The potential for growth, there are the levers for potential of growth. One is what I have already covered, which is the bifurcation of fund and the distribution of surplus distribution policy, which has been framed by the corporation. And this is enhanced by commercial levers through the various campaigns for revival of policy and enhanced customer engagement. There is our financial levers where the corporation continue to embark on the strategic asset allocation continued with the market cycles and changes in the market conditions. The value proposition, the corporation brings a value proposition for all the stakeholders, by which the growth levers and the other levers which I have covered earlier will provide a good opportunity for all the stakeholders, and the higher persistency at and the stable long-term products and the indicate sticky customer base supported by a strong brand value enhances the value and will be a good proposition for the shareholder, all the shareholders. Thank you.
Thank you. We are playing the AV now. Can we play the AV now? Corporate AV?
देश के हर पल में कल आज और कल में देश के हर पल कभी परछाई बनके कभी विश्वास बनके दिल में साहस का एहसास बनके उम्मीदों को सच्चाई के रंग से सजाते हैं मुश्किलें कोई हरदम साथ निभाते हैं कल आज और कल में रहते हैं देश के हर पल में रहते हैं प्रगति के पहियों की रफ्तार बढ़ाते हैं करोड़ों सपनों को आकार दिलाते हैं आज और कल में रहते हैं देश के हर पल में रहते हैं 1956 से आज तक LIC हर पल आपके साथ।
The year was 1956. A young, ambitious India put its heart and soul behind a path-breaking vision to support every Indian to progress with security, protection and self-confidence. And with this mission was born the Life Insurance Corporation of India. LIC's corporate philosophy also underlies this effort to create stability and security. Yogakshemam Vaham Yaham. Your welfare is our responsibility. That is why, even 65 years later and more than 20 years of competition, LIC has sustained its leadership position. LIC's asset under management is 15.6 times larger than its nearest competitor as at December 31st, 2021. LIC's role goes much beyond being a mere insurance provider. A lifeline to the nation, LIC contributes significantly to the growth and development of the Indian economy. LIC has a diversified product portfolio covering various segments, from financial security to pension, to help people improve their quality of life. A mission which was realized with a highly motivated workforce. LIC has the largest agency network among all life insurance entities in India. More than 13 lakh agents ensure that LIC's products and services reach urban, rural and remote locations in the country. LIC's vast network of offices is spread across all 36 states and union territories of India. With an extensive omni-channel distribution through bank assurance partners, alternate channel partners, direct sales through its website and point of sales persons. Its technological initiatives have enabled LIC to capitalize on the increasing digitization of the Indian economy by delivering a pleasant customer experience, driving operating efficiencies, and providing quicker responses to secure a competitive advantage. LIC is the world's third strongest and 10th most valuable global insurance brand. LIC has spread its wings with a global presence. As a financial conglomerate, LIC offers multifaceted financial instruments through its subsidiaries and associates. The Indian life insurance market is the 10th largest in the world. High GDP, a young population, and rapid urbanization will propel growth of the Indian life insurance sector. As the largest player in the fast-growing and under-penetrated Indian life insurance sector, LIC is all set to scale greater heights. LIC, Life Insurance Corporation of India. Har pal aapke saath.
So we will throw up the session for some questions. I'll request the media reporter to identify yourself, give your name, and please ask your questions.
Sir, this is Yash Jain from CNBC TV 18. We did have an interaction with the management. First of all, congratulations to Secretary Deepam, management and bankers for this announcement. I had a couple of questions, sir, and if Secretary Deepam could help me understand these. First one, on the aspect of valuation. 3 months ago, we were valuing the company at around 10 lakh crore. 3 months later, we are here at about 6 lakh crore. Were we overvaluing LIC at that time? Are we undervaluing LIC right now? What is the real valuation? Second question is with respect to the stake which is being diluted, about 3.5%. Is there any sort of exemption which has been asked from SEBI? What will you dilute in the following year? And by the end of 3 years, where do you see government holding in LIC? At what point? The final question is with respect to one particular point that you also mentioned in the DRHP, that there could be certain times where government's objective could be in contravention to the interest of the other minority and retail shareholders, and those decisions will have to be taken. This could be investments or in any other form. Why can't the government exclude itself once it gets listed and there are retail shareholders completely out of that particular domain? Thank you, sir.
That's a lot of questions. Not two, I think there are many. Let me, the question of valuation, I actually, if you would have noticed, I addressed it right in the upfront when I made a statement. It's not correct to say that 3 months back this was this, 2 months back this was this. These are all guesstimates which are, I think people are speculating, not any authoritative government sources. I mean, I think the simplistically, what media is trying to do is that you have some listed player and then you have an EV, which was for the first time in case of LIC is discovered and revealed in the DRHP on February 13th, I think. So, I mean, thereafter, the easiest thing you can do is just to say that, okay, this is multiply this, and so this is a valuation. I think everyone is entitled to do that, and I think that entitlement has to flow to hundreds of boardrooms, literally thousands of analysts, which have gone in after the DRHP, gone into the numbers, because we also cannot give any forward guidance, we also cannot give numbers. They are the ones who analyze these numbers. They ask questions. There are hundreds of roadshows where the questions have been answered, the questions have been asked. So the valuation process is essentially a discovery process, because you don't know what are we comparing. Is LIC equal to HDFC Life or SBI Life, or is it equal to some of the Chinese peers, or is it similar to Prudential? Is it like AIA, or is it like Ping An, or is it China Life, or is it ICICI Life, or a Max Life? So what it is compared to. Now the question is that they are the numbers which they go into, and I think anybody, any investors, any research analyst will go deeper into this analysis. And I think you got also a little bit of a glimpse of what Mr. Ashok was telling about the embedded value. I think it's even difficult for us to decipher, although we have been exposed to that. The T-fog and the embedded value, and the present value of future business, and then value of new business, and the VNB margin. These are different parametrics which affect the insurance industry. Similarly, some people, they start making comparison of price earning ratio, EBITDA multiple. I mean, they are good for some industry, they are not good for some others. So what I mean to say is that extensive feedback has come over the years, and we have 10 merchant bankers on this, which have their own exercises, they have done their own modeling, they've gone back to the investors, they have come back with the feedback, and through an iterative process, we've worked out a valuation of, what he says, 3.5% of the shares initially, which we are divesting, a small number. But that value is, as you say, embedded value, which is future this. Now you have corporations at different levels of maturity. So, I mean, certainly the one which is younger is just like a youth. You are relatively young. So, I mean, you will be evaluated slightly differently than probably Madam sitting over there. So, I mean, this is another one. At what is the level of growth you attribute to? What is the potentiality of growth? So, all these factors, complex numbers, give into the valuation. So, I think there is no sort of valuation done by the government. The DRHP was the numbers, and thereafter the valuation game starts, where all these numbers are analyzed, as I said, across the globe. And this. So therefore, this is to say that it was 10 and now 6 and 18 and the different ways floating around. These are incorrect. These are the numbers which I've arrived at in that. The question is, I would say that this is a fair and attractive valuation. It's important to make it attractive, because also the fact that, if my goal is also to enable millions of Indians participate in this IPO process and and maybe increase their value as the LIC unlocks itself. Many a time what happens is that whether you are the value upfront or whether you are getting value going forward. If you are having a corporation, and that too as large as LIC, I think many a time investors would like to really say, okay, let it demonstrate the growth performance or VNB margin performance and others going forward, and then we'll value it accordingly and your prices will rise. So it's like, and if you rise, the people of India will still be retaining that 96.5 and that value will also rise too. So therefore, I think this is that's why I said valuation flows from optimizing positioning, devising best marketing strategy, accessing the investors in the right way, right sequencing, structuring, deal appropriately and selecting the optimal market window. So these are complex 5 factors which actually will determine valuation of a company. It is not as simple as that, is multiplying a number from some number obtained from somewhere. That's one, I think, question number 1. I think there will be similar questions, so I've basically answered the questions around that.
So on the similar lines, sir, hi, this is Utkarsh Chaturvedi from ET Now. Now one question is with regards to RBI and SEBI, have we really asked for some kind of relaxations, and if yes, what are those? Secondly, a very important part is that the divestment target in the starting was around 60-65,000 crore rupees from LIC itself. Given the fact that we are talking about 21,000 crore rupees here, will we be able to meet the same from LIC in this financial year itself? Will that be something which we will be able to achieve?
First of all, I think we have to dispossess ourselves to this notion that you have a certain number in the budget and then you have to relate it to one particular transaction. I mean, after all, the budget number involves several transactions, which also goes on. So it is not that there. As I said, we are in terms of this, government is more of a market player. When I come here, it's not really to exercise sovereign rights of the government or lawmaking rights of the government, but actually like anybody, like any promoter which comes in and has to respect the market, has to respect the market players, because that's what we are. We are in the market. And the stock markets have to play with demand and supply factor. On the question of SEBI, yes, SEBI has granted the exemption. Initially, this rule has been, actually this rule itself is being applied for the first time, because there is no such company which is more than 1 lakh crore market cap, above market cap, which is coming. This rule is coming for the first time. Now, obviously, if we had the present market conditions, where I explained that it's not that there is a fair amount of domestic demand, there is probably a subdued demand from abroad. So in the kind of a constrained environment that we had, it was best to take a call on the right size of the issue, because you can list it at 3.5 and going forward you can do it. But we have given our commitment that we aren't bringing in any other FPO within next 1 year.
Sir, this is Saurabh from NDTV. Sir, here. Sir, you mentioned constrained situation. So then there's been a lot of question on the timing as well. Why now, if the situation was constrained? Do you think this was the right time, or as some have opined, would waiting a bit longer would have worked better?
Once again, I draw your attention to my statement, which was because I had anticipated all those questions and put my statement up front, but probably it was more abstract and therefore you would like to have a more nuanced answer. Now, what did I say? Decision to list now has taken into account a combination of multiple factors, including market demand, which is the anchor book, stabilizing market condition, reducing volatility. That's why we actually postponed this issue from March, because we did have this concern when things were very high. So domestic flows are important, and we are seeing domestic flows because the fact is that, there have been, FIIs have, if they have withdrawn, the domestics have filled in. So there is a domestic demand, especially for LIC. We have this, feedback and inputs that there is quite a bit of a domestic demand. And then you have a corporation's financial performance. And the second thing is, what is really a good time in the market? And if you really ask anybody, nobody can actually predict the markets. because markets are always influenced by the world events. Now the domestic as well as world events. Now markets are so integrated around the world as well that when something happens in one part of the world, it really impacts. And world is very large. So you can't say that, 4 months down the line, you will have this thing and all that. So point is that we have, something which we have been in the works for quite some time. We've been talking about LIC, IPO. And this is something which we are trying to bring in. So when we are bringing it at 3.5%, and one of the reasons why, we went down from 5% to 3.5 is that, okay, even if we have a little bit of a constrained environment, we can still will pull it off, because that's the kind of an optimum demand scenario which exists. And there is an anchor book to support it.
Hi sir, I'm Sami from
नमस्ते
Business
सर, मैं
Standard.
अनुराग जी बिजनेस से ओके सर, माय नेम इज अनुराग, आई एम फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस सर. सर, अभी आपने कहा कि अगले 1 साल तक कोई एफपीओ नहीं आएगा, लेकिन जो सेबी के नियम है उसके मुताबिक अगले 2 साल में 10% तक आपको हिस्सा कम करना है, तो वहां पर कुछ और आपके द्वारा छूट मांगी जाएगी क्या, जिस तरह से अभी आपने छूट ली है? इसके अलावा सर, जो एलआईसी की हिस्सेदारी है आईडीबीआई बैंक में, एलआईसी तो बोल रहा है कि भैया हमें आईडीबीआई बैंक में बने रहना है क्योंकि कारोबार के लिए काफी मददगार है, बाकी सब कंपनियों के पास भी बैंक है. तो क्या आप एलआईसी को आईडीबीआई बैंक में बने रहने देंगे या फिर पूरा हिस्सा बिकवा देंगे?
जहाँ तक आपने प्रश्न पूछा है कि आप कितनी देर तक क्या करेंगे, देखिए ये जो नया रूल है और ये नई कंपनी दिस कॉरपोरेशन है, नॉर्मली यदि कोई ये भी कह सकता है कि आप एलआईसी का तो आईपीओ 20 साल पहले आना चाहिए था या 25 साल पहले आना चाहिए था, क्योंकि इतनी मेच्योरिटी लेवल पे आई थिंक रेयर ही है कोई आईपीओ आता है इन द ग्रोथ ऑफ द लाइफ साइकिल ऑफ अ कॉरपोरेशन. तो रिलेटिवली अर्ली ऑन आता है क्योंकि उसको यूज़ कैपिटल रेजिंग के लिए किया जाता है, उसको ग्रोथ के लिए किया जा सकता है. हमारी काफ़ी वेल ग्रोन कॉरपोरेशन है, तो ऑब्वियसली यदि जितना बड़ा साइज मार्केट कैप होगा उसके हिसाब से डाइल्यूशन में उसका क्राउडिंग आउट इफेक्ट देखना पड़ेगा. सो जो आप कह रहे हैं कि मतलब एक जो कंस्ट्रेंट एनवायरनमेंट है कि 25% आपको एमपीएस 5 साल में लाना है, वो उस तरह का जो कंस्ट्रेंट है वो आएगा इसमें कॉरपोरेशन में, एंड इट मे नॉट बी फिजिबल. सो उसको जब हम इस रूल को, बिकॉज ये पहली बार ये वाला रूल इस तरह से आया है लार्ज कॉरपोरेशंस के लिए, तो उसको हमको बातचीत करके उस समय पे अप्रोप्रिएट टाइम पे उसको सुलझाना होगा. तो इसलिए यू आर राइट कि फिजिबिलिटी, अब जैसे आपने बोला कि जितना बड़ा आपका मार्केट कैप है उस हिसाब से यदि उतना डाइल्यूशन होता है तो उस डाइल्यूशन के काफ़ी सारे इम्पैक्ट होते हैं मार्केट में, और माइनॉरिटी शेयर होल्डर्स पे भी इम्पैक्ट होता है, तो वो सब ध्यान में रखा जाएगा.
सर, सजीत हियर फ्रॉम
आईडीबीआई बैंक में तो हमारी पोजीशन क्लियर है, बोथ एलआईसी एंड गवर्नमेंट. हम लोग एलआईसी आईडीबीआई बैंक से एग्जिट करेंगे, एटलीस्ट मैनेजमेंट कंट्रोल तो एग्जिट करेंगे ही उसके साथ साथ. दैट इज अ पोजीशन विच इज देयर एंड द प्रोसेस हैज बीन सेट इनटू मोशन.
Sir, Sami from
Sir,
Business
Sajid here
Standard.
from Bloomberg Quint. Sir, you mentioned here, sir, here. You mentioned that couple of factors went into before you decided to come out with an IPO. One of them is the kind of growth opportunity that LIC has, and because we are very underpenetrated in insurance, there is a huge runway for any company that comes in. But when you come out with an IPO, that growth projection is valued into the valuation of an IPO. We saw that happening with many of the new age companies which don't even have a cash flow, and it got enormous value and which got eroded. But in the case of LIC, there is a business model, there is a cash flow which is there and growth there, and still we have decided to come at 1.1 times. Can you give an idea why? I know you said fair and attractive, but is it too undervalued for LIC?
नहीं, वो तो I have answered that question because I will not be able to explain, because I answered it all the things the numbers and the things which you are going forward you can do. So I think somebody has to model it, and यदि आप कहते हैं तो आप उसको modeling करके आप कह सकते हैं कि किस तरह से क्या value ज़्यादा होगी. Because
Sir,
we are not here to set numbers here.
Sir, Sammy here from Business Standard. I want to understand why there is differential discount for retail investors and policyholders. And can policyholders register now to apply in the IPO? And what is the number that has registered so far? I mean, what is the number that you expect to participate in the IPO, policyholder number?
Policy holders को तो higher discount का we have really policy holders we feel कि they have been pillars with us, and in the Parliament Act itself we have provided. So it's an act of Parliament that the reservation is there for that. Even act itself mention a certain proportion of discount can be offered. So I think policy holders also make this company as much as this, and we invite them to be shareholders as well. They are stakeholders, all right. So on both sides they can come in.
Hello. Yes, sir. This is Keshav here from Fortune India. My question, and you tried to explain why you're selling LIC so cheap, but we still can't digest that. And market leader saying 8 times the closest competitor, and you're saying you're in a mature growth phase, and still you want investors that they need you, that LIC has to prove itself to get better valuation going in the future. So, why is it that you have chosen to sell a crown jewel so cheap?
No.
And if it is about value maximization for the government.
Why are you not looking at embedded value? I explained to you that the embedded value captures, typically everything will gravitate towards one. Because embedded value is the one where you are value arriving at, as if you have, used all your stuff, Embedded value is that, it's a value of in-force future business. So, if your LIC's embedded value is many times over of the other value, so that value is also being counted. Is larger than the market cap of all the companies put together. So that you are not counting, because that's also has got into it. If you will recall, if you're a mature company, you would have matured enough. If I am mature, multiple of EV is like, you are reaching there. Why are you giving a multiple of EV? That means you have a value right now, value of your in-force business is less, but you are trying to reach it to higher level. So you said you will go for 2 EV or 3 EV. Over a period of time, it will actually probably come down. If you really analyze a little bit, even some of the listed thing, their EVs have come down.
So,
multiples have come down, and because as the EV grows, as you grow EV, the multiples will come down.
Yeah,
Ankur Mishra from ET now.
Sir, Saikat Das from Economic Times. What, according to you, was the key?
I have some data. I do not know. Again, I would say let's not do apple-orange comparison. But you have Ping An, which is a large Chinese player. It's at 0.5 of times of EV. You have China Life, which is 0.2. You have at Prudential, which is 0.8x. So, please try and understand that this apple and orange comparison is not the one, because EV itself is a very complex exercise. It is the value of in-force business on an actuarial basis. So all your future flows for your existing policies have to be measured and brought it down to a present value. So it's a very complex thing. And a good thing is that the LIC actually did it. It wasn't doing it earlier. So it gives you a far better view of what its value of in-force business is.
Sir, Saikat Das from Economic Times newspaper. In the aftermath of the geopolitical tension, what according to you was the key hurdle before you decide to go ahead, and how did you overcome it? Thank you.
No, first of all, we waited because We wanted to do it in March, so but we have waited. One can argue, why don't you wait more? So it's a matter of thing. In future, we don't know. We can just, but we have relatively said that it is a doable. And when we are saying doable, we are taking a call not based on what I personally feel, because we as a person is not as important as a whole lot of people who are supporting us. They bring that message, and that's the message which we take. We have professional advisors which will take their opinion and go ahead.
This is Ben
Ankur Mishra from ET
Ben
now.
from PTI.
Sir, you have already mentioned about the dispensation which was sought from SEBI. Was there any relaxation which was sought from RBI as well, especially on the financing by NBFCs, which is there is a ceiling of 1 crore? And second question, sir, you have quite elaborated on the valuation front and also why 3.5%. But what is the underlying message when you are going with just 3.5% instead of 5%, which was the intention at the time of filing of DRHP on February 13? Thank you.
I have said it. Optimal, when you see you have your optimal size is dependent on the situation that you are in. So, आप भी बताइए ना, आपको कोविड में शादी करवानी है, आपने कैसे कैसे करवाई है शादी? वहाँ से बरमाला पहना के इधर से करके आपने सब कुछ किया है. मतलब point is कि there is always a way to do things. The point is not doing things is the easiest thing one can say. Okay? But there is a domestic demand. I mean, should we disappoint them?
May I just take the liberty?
People have been asking कि LIC का IPO कब आ रहा है? Should we disappoint them indefinitely?
Yeah. May I just take one second? Just taking the liberty on this question, which is repeatedly coming up on size and valuation on behalf of all the investment bankers to the issue. When we made our recommendations to the government, the one dharma we have followed is take the market and the investor feedback in its true sense. And that partly answers all the questions you're asking. In the interest of the time, and given some questions are repeating, maybe we'll take another 1 or 2 questions, and if there is people want to interact with them, they can just probably loosely do it over lunch. That will be my humble request to all of you.
Sir, you Suashri from Bloomberg News. I wanted to understand one about the anchor book. You mentioned, sir, that the anchor book, the anchor demand is pretty good. Could you please help us, Mr. Pandey or Mr. Ramesh, to understand what is the demand, what is the commitment that we've got so far, and how much are we looking at in the next 3 days before we start the anchor book?
No, the anchor book, as you know in other deals, when there is a declaration made to the public, you will know, you'll have to wait because we are all bound in the realms of talking within the prospectus. So kindly wait, I think you will get that information.
Okay, sir, just wanted to understand a follow-up question about the, why didn't we, you said that you wanted to leave some money on the table, if I read it correctly, because, you know, the practical valuation was this. Going, even if we had launched it after a few months, why did we rush to do this now instead of waiting for a few months, sir?
See, I think probably the Secretary has answered that question quite a few times. So if you're still not satisfied, may I just request we can interact on the follow-up questions maybe just as we break out for lunch.
My question was about why did we rush, not why did we delay. So I think the Secretary answers question about the delay but not the rush. But why did we not rush into this and not...
But I think the delay and the rush are all interlinked questions. So I think we can take that up separately. It's been answered.
The tax collection went up by more than 5 trillion rupees about the revised budget estimate. So government is not fund-starved. So why couldn't they wait for an opportune time? This is to the Secretary, not to the IBA.
Waiting for the issue because it's already beyond April. You're saying it was not required for the budget. Did we want to wait more?
Pardon my saying that when you say a budget announcement is made, it is not only that, you know, it must be fulfilled by 31st March. We try to, but the point is that when you have a difficulty in a month of March and you know that you can't launch it.
So that difficulty still continues, right?
No.
The difficulty still continues, and the government has collected 5 trillion rupees more than what it's budgeted for from taxes. So where is the urgent need for money now?
Further need for what? I'm not, it's not clear to me.
No, the tax collection has been more than 5 lakh crore from the revised budget estimate. So the government has money, so why are you getting this 21,000 now? You could have waited for a better valuation.
No, the money is always required for the government. I mean, mind you that, I am yet to hear this thing. Government, always we required receipt.
But you had a windfall of 5 trillion.
No. We require receipts. Pardon me saying that we require receipts. We have to meet this budget also. The budget is relentless. Every day there is a spending.
Sir, I have a question on LIC's
we
profitability.
Want to have capital investments. How do we make capital investments?
Can you make this the last question, please?
Yeah, I have a question on LIC's profitability. So for FY22, I mean, given the market cap and size of LIC, the profits that you make are quite meager. So there's a criticism that LIC is structured in a way that it's policyholder friendly company and not shareholder friendly. So how would the company balance this two interests between shareholder and policyholder? And also on profitability, I mean, given its size, it's quite low. So what are your thoughts on that?
LIC. This is on profitability of LIC. The question.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, as we all heard, Secretary and all of you saying that policyholders have actually made this organization, but now that we are changing over with the listing, I'm sure the shareholders also will have to have their share. So going forward, already the Act was amended to be in line with the rest of the industry from 95.5 to 90.10, you're aware of that. And we will take all measures required in terms of shareholder value creation going forward. And there are many things that we are doing which I can't obviously state as of today, but maybe post-listing when we meet, maybe after Q1, there are many things that I will be able to share with you at that time.
Sir, this is Joel Rebello from the Economic Times.
Yes, Joel.
My question is to Mr. Pandey. You, by your own admission, have said that you all are dependent on domestic inflows. Right now, FIIs are pulling out from India. That's the story for the last couple of months. Yeah. How then would you, ensure that there's enough demand on the anchor book, or because these guys are the ones who will probably create a base? So how will you ensure that there's enough demand and your stock is sold as such, basically?
There is enough demand, and when I was making a general point, FII is not coming in, that doesn't mean that the FIIs are not coming in this, for this transaction. So you will see, I think the anchor demand is strong, anchored book is there, because we have received the feedback from all our advisors and merchant bankers, and they have advised us that there is a strong anchor demand, and you will see the book.
I think you may have many questions. I'll request Sanjay to propose a vote of thanks.
Hi, sorry, just a last.
And thank you very much.
Can we just do one last question, please?
I think we're really running out of time. Maybe we'll just take it offline.
Okay.
So, I just wanted to share on behalf of a lot of my investment banking leaders are all sitting here. So I wanted to share on behalf of all of them that, while we are sitting on a fairly momentous occasion, IPO of Life Insurance Corporation of India, but the efforts that Secretary Mr. Pandey, Joint Secretary Alok, Mr. Agarwal and Mr. Kumar and his whole team at LIC, what they have unraveled through and what they have pulled through in the last few months is quite staggering. And I can only say on behalf of all of us who've been kind of played a little role in this process, that this has been unthinkable and unseen, I think, in any context, public, private, government, non-government. And I think that's the real acknowledgement today, that, while the government took that decision, a strategic decision, that this is one of the government's objectives to list LIC, put it on a path of a lot of future value creation, but that effort and unraveling and the commitment that has gone behind this by, Secretary Disinvestment and his team is something that I think we should all very gratefully acknowledge and thank everybody. More importantly, I think I could also see a lot of the questions around timing, valuation. You should also acknowledge that India is possibly the only market that can afford and, give an offering of this size and stature in a volatile global environment like this. And it's a sign of, India's, I would say, revised standing, not just in the context of growth and capital markets, but also its revised standing in the geopolitical order and how it is going to attract future capital flows. it reflects all of that to have the confidence to come and launch a $3 billion issuance, which frankly no other market has seen of any consequence in the last 3-4 months since this period of global volatility started. So I think you see a multiple set of objectives kind of getting fulfilled here. And I think in the final analysis, this is just a start. And this is going to be a very diverse and inclusive process, which is why Secretary is repeatedly reiterating that this is really for all of India. You have the anchor book, you have the FPIs, you have the domestic investors, but you have a very large retail population. And what was espoused right in the beginning on LIC's, objectives from this IPO was to have the whole of India participate. I think that will be the true success of this IPO, not just the starting valuation or not just, the starting size. I think we are setting the runway for a tremendous growth of possibly India's most valuable company. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for spending this time with us.